about 20 minutes ago. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Manu, and of course, welcome to Safari Live. It's great to have you all on board with us today. Remember, this is live, this is interactive. It's happening right now, so you can talk to us via the YouTube chat, or you can also just hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. That's also, oh, what's going on here with the long claws? Let me see if any of them are going to pop their heads up. Now, Ralph is also out. He's out bumbling about. I don't know where he's gone, though. I can just hear, there's a yellow-throated longclaw just sitting on that shrub, but there's two males. It sounds like two males having a bit of a vocal dispute at the moment. Have a little listen. You can hear them. They're not flying around now chasing one another like they were just a moment ago. They were too quick for us. It seems to have all settled down, but just as we were starting the show, I just kept seeing these flashes of yellow bombing down from trees into the long grass, and then up from the long grass and onto small shrubs. And now this one male is sat up on a little shrub, and he is calling his heart out. So I think he must have won that little dispute. And we're seeing a lot of action with the birds lately, from building nests to, well, of course, beautiful displays, mating displays, and then of course these territorial displays too. What a nice way to start the afternoon, with a couple of birds. Now, Kestrel Fox, you said, are they having a sing-off? I suppose yes, that's a much better way of putting it. Perhaps I shall steal that, a sing-off. I quite like that. So essentially, yes, they were. So sometimes birds will fight, but just like lions and leopards, they don't necessarily want to come into conflict straight away. So if they can, they'll try and shout at each other and act as big and scary as they can. Obviously, it's not intimidating when you're a bird and you're singing at one another. It's quite funny. And sort of putting a Broadway spin on it. Of course, where leopards and lions would be growling at each other and mock charging, etc. So yeah, so that didn't work. Like I said, there was some chasing around, and that didn't seem, well, no, not it didn't seem to work, it did seem to work. That's in fact. So our plan this afternoon is to head down the main river road. I got wind of a male lion that killed a buffalo, so I'm not sure who it is or where exactly it is, but we'll go investigate around Serena. Like I said, Rolf is also out on a safari. Let's go and find out where in the triangle he's driving.
Yes, thank you, Taylor. And just speaking of sing-offs, I do challenge the Kenyans versus the South Africans to a sing-off of national anthems by Christmas time. Now, welcome aboard the afternoon game drive. We are here live with Safari Live in Kenya, all the way in the Masai Mara, and it is an absolute festival of elephants. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and we've got Archie on the camera, my one-armed wingman, and I tell you what, it is an absolutely beautiful scene here. We've got, I don't know how many elephants are here, but it is one of those days where they're just all out in the marsh. And I can tell you that if I had to say how happy am I would be as happy as an elephant in the marsh, because they've got water, they've got food, and they all just seem so happy. Now, please join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and the YouTube live chat. Send us your questions and your comments, because we'd love to have you involved. This is the largest game drive in the world, and we will be happy to show you lots of action. But for now, it is a very relaxed, very serene. There's the odd elephant having a bit of argy-bargy, and I'm not sure where he went, but there was a warthog masquerading as one as well. I think he felt he was quite safe here in amongst the big guys. He wouldn't get chased by those pesky lions. But everybody happy just to be mooching around. Now, Vanessa, you're commenting that you'd love to be here. Well, I would love to have you with us, but for now, we'll have to do it via the internet, and we'll keep bringing you these live images from the Maasai Triangle. And I look at that little youngster. He's really, that's probably within a year's age. You can see now what I was talking about this morning, those ears really overlapping at the top, almost there, they're just starting to come apart. So we're talking around a year's old, but this is still a very small little youngster. And see how he's battling to use that trunk of his, not quite knowing whether to push or pull, whether to blow or suck. It's really fun to watch. And sticking very close to Mum. Mia, you're wondering how old that little youngster is. Well, he's within a year's of age, because as I was saying, you can judge by the once they get use of that trunk, or once they start to know how to use it, and once the ears drop down the side of the head. That's normally at around a year old, but it's all down to the individual. Everybody develops differently, so we would hazard a guess at around a year old, but he's very young nevertheless, and you can see how closely he hangs next to Mum, because he could get very easily squashed by any of the others. So Mum would be taking extra special care, and it looks like there is a young female who's maybe just coming in just to, get involved with the parental care. You know how young girls are. They like to push little dolls around in a pram. It's no different in wildlife. Now, something very special that I have witnessed with a group of elephants was that there was an elephant herd reintroduced into a private nature reserve in the Eastern Cape. And this herd had a matriarch, so they'd brought an entire group in, and it was one adult female with a lot of younger females that joined her. And what happened was that a teenage female got covered by one of the dominant bulls, but she was very young and almost too young to have a baby elephant. Nevertheless, she went through her pregnancy fine, and she gave birth to a tiny little elephant, but she was very unsure of how to suckle, and it almost seemed as if the little baby was going to die, because it wasn't latching onto Mommy, she wasn't doing the right things, and it was looking very precarious that the baby was dehydrating and it was almost going to die. But what happened was, the matriarch, she started to nuzzle the little baby, and she pushed it around and spent a lot of time with it, and I tell you that eventually she actually started lactating, and the little baby suckled from her, and she took it through the first 6 to 8 months of its life. She actually adopted this little baby, but the mother of the baby actually hung with her all day, every day. So it was the three of them, the little baby, the matriarch, adopted mom, and the real mom. They moved everywhere together, and after the 8 months or so, the youngster then went with the real mom. So it just goes to show that elephants are very special, and even when there is a problem within the group and such, to the point where it seemed that the little baby was going to die, there were other things that could come into that scenario. So that was a fantastic little outcome and a happy ending for all. Now, I think we're going to sit here with these elephants, because we'd be rude not to. I know everybody's chasing predators, and I know that Taylor might have found a predator for you, so let's go over to her.
Oh, what a lovely elephant story, Ralph. I know that I enjoy elephant stories, and I would actually like to sit and listen to some of them. Maybe I have to go back and watch the show. Now, we have not got something as beautiful as an elephant, I'm afraid. We've got a filthy hyena who's just laying next to the road and doesn't really seem to care that we are even here today, which is quite cool. And it's actually quite a common sight in the maras to see hyenas scattered along the roads, just resting in all the puddles where the water's built up. Oh, flies bothering you. Yes, that seems to be a problem for all of the animals at the moment, after all the rain. Although we haven't had too much rain now the last few evenings. There have been a couple of downpours, but nothing causing any more flash floods. Doing a big rollover. Does that feel nice? They're so funny to watch, these hyenas. This doesn't quite look like an adult just yet. It's actually still quite small, so I reckon it's on its way to adulthood, not too far off. And definitely been sitting in the mud today, twitching its ears. They've actually got very hairy ears. And look at all the different colours that they have. Okay, yes, this one is particularly dirty, so it's quite brown and muddy at the moment, but I love how it's managed to keep its ears clean. Very nice hyena. Isn't it so precious? I think they're quite precious animals. No, Sherry, you're not the only one. I promise you right now that I also think that this hyena is very cute. I think that they're adorable animals. They're really funny to watch. I mean, this one's not particularly entertaining at the moment, but to watch them at a den, they are hilarious. Just watching the different interactions between the members of the clan is really interesting. And watching the sort of hierarchy fights that also happen, which are quite common with the youngsters as they're starting to develop their position within the clan, is also quite interesting to watch. You know what we need to do is when we go across the river, we're going to have to pop past Musiara and stop at that big hyena den that is not too far away. But let's carry on, because I do want to see what's happening with this lion. So one of the Angama guides, Jeffrey, gave me the intel. He said that when he was here a little bit earlier, the male lion hadn't actually opened and started feasting upon the buffalo just yet. Whee! I must maybe look where I'm driving. No! My car just got cleaned! Oh, no, it's filthy. That was a mistake. That was not supposed to happen. So we're going to keep heading in that direction, because it could be quite cool if we could see this male lion as he starts to feast. Yeah, it's quite hot. So I don't know if he'll be eating for too long. I reckon he'll stuff his face and then probably go to sleep and relax a little bit. So we want to try to get there before the action is over, because there's nothing worse than watching a male lion with a big belly fast asleep. Now, Brent, you're wondering, what is the worst smelling animal? You know, it all depends. There's lots of animals around here. I will stop and have a look at them while I answer this question. Let's look at the impala, because we don't often stop and look at the impala. So the smelliest animal out here, I think it depends on your nose. Actually, I should probably park this side so people can go around me. There's some beautiful impala rams out here. I don't like the smell of a wild dog. I find it particularly terrible. I also don't like the smell of wildebeest and waterbuck. They stink. Wildebeest makes my stomach turn straight away. Their coat smells like burnt butter that's been left out in the sun for a long time. It's not nice. And waterbuck smell like dirty drain water. Wild dogs smell something like old sweaty socks that have had blue cheese ripening in them. So those are my three worst smells. And then any carcass that's been sitting in the sun for longer than 3 days makes me gag. I have such a weak stomach, it's so embarrassing. Even if I see somebody else wanting to get sick, then I start gagging too. It's not particularly pleasant. So sightings with rotting carcasses are not my favorite. I can stomach the smells of wild dogs, wildebeest, and waterbuck and all the other stinky creatures out here. But yeah, rotting carcass is my absolute worst. Rotting hyena carcass was not very nice. But yeah, so these impala ram are just munching about. There's even a young giraffe that's coming to join the sighting. I think it's feeling a little bit left out this afternoon. Just walking past a small group of buffalo that are resting in the grass. It's so hot. It was actually really nice when the clouds came over, and there's just big pockets of them, and when it casts that shadow, it's such a beautiful temperature. But as soon as the sun pokes its head through the clouds, my goodness, it's quite humid. So I think there is going to be some rain building this afternoon, and hopefully we can play the game of avoid the rain, or we'll try our absolute best to, of course, do that. This is a young male giraffe. There are quite a few other giraffe all in the distance, just feeding sort of towards the middle of this grassland where there's some small shrubs. Not quite too much that they can feed off along the river road. A couple of smaller shrubs, but I don't know how tasty they are. and some waterbuck too. Very nice. But let's carry on. Like we said, we have a plan this afternoon. So just a very quick look at all the wonderful animals that we're passing by. So we'll keep racing along towards the 4-kilometer sign. Ralph is still sitting with his elephants, and I'm sure he's got a few more stories he can share.
Yes, thanks, Taylor. I've got so many elephant stories, but I don't want to tell them to you all at once, because what would I be able to tell you on my next drive? But look at this little youngster. He's put a whole bunch of grass on his head. Now, that is also in practice for when they are older, and generally the older bulls especially, once they try to show their stuff towards whether it be a vehicle or another male or anything aggressively towards them, they also start to put things on their head, and that, I think, in some way trying to show that they're a little bit bigger than the rest. Now, I know Taylor was answering the question that which animal is the smelliest for her. Well, for me, in my experience, it has to be said that a brown hyena is a really smelly bugger, because they literally smell like rotting carcass, and not a good smell at all. Normally with brown hyena, I generally smell them before I see them. Now, talking of smells, the same with the brown hyena. They exhibit anal pasting, which is also exhibited by the spotted hyena, but not as much, and the smell isn't as pungent. We did witness it yesterday, where they sort of climb over a blade of grass or these stalks that are sticking out, and they then wipe their bottom on it. Now, all dogs have this anal gland as well, and very often that's why you see them dragging their bum along the grass or whatever. It's actually milking that anal gland, and there's a few other animals that do it as well, and a civet being one of them. The two that are the most pungent smelling anal pasters are the civet, first and foremost, and secondly the brown hyena. And you can very often smell that brown hyena pasting long before you've seen any of them. Now, something very interesting about a civet paste and the civet anal gland is that, and this is for all the ladies out there, the smell that comes from perfume. Now, not the smell that is actually in perfume, the element within perfume that makes it linger longer originally was mixed with some of the elements from civet anal pastings, and it went to such a point that even your famous brands like Chanel No. 5, they would keep civets in captivity and milk this gland of theirs from their anus and use that in the production of perfume. So, ladies, remember that the next time you're spraying on your lovely perfume. But also in future, please do have a look at the perfume. On the packaging, it needs to say civet friendly, because they do have artificial elements that they can put in, but it doesn't work as well as the civet anal pasting element. So please, we don't want civets in captivity, but yeah, the better perfumes do have this natural element, because we find it difficult to reproduce. But something interesting to think about the next time you're putting on your very expensive perfume, that it might actually contain some form of anal pasting of a civet. Quite a weird thought that, but let's get back to the happy-go-lucky elephants moving through the plain and grazing as they go. We've been listening to them communicate with that low rumble. It's a very humbling experience to be in the presence of so many elephants out here, and there's all walks of life here, big and small. And as I said, there was a warthog moving through them as well just now, and he was almost the size of that little one over there. Now, Carl, you're wondering how many elephants we can see well, if Archie comes back a little bit here, you can just get an idea of the sheer expanse of it. And if he goes from that area in the west heading towards the east, I would say we're bordering on 3 figures, if not more. Well, not more figures, but I would say that we could be over 100 elephants here, and they're dotted all around, and it is really a sight to behold. We've got the clouds building, so it is intermittent between rather cool to rather hot. We're sitting at about mid 70 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe the lower 30s. At least there is a little bit of a breeze, so you can see the elephants aren't too hot. There's not too much ear flapping. Everybody seems quite content, out on holiday, heading towards the Christmas season. And I was just chatting with Archie earlier, asking him where have all the animals gone, because when we headed down we couldn't see a single animal, and he reckoned that they'd all gone on holiday to Tanzania. But luckily we found this group of ellies, and look at that one, he's lying flat out in amongst the woolly-necked stalks, and that just goes to show that there is a fallacy that elephants don't lie down to sleep. Well, there's proof that they do. They don't spend too much time lying down because it does become a little bit heavy for them for breathing. So it's normally around half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and then you see them either shift position or start to stand up. But they will lie down for extended periods, especially on the side of a termite mound or a little bit of a river bank. It just makes it easier for them to breathe. But they do lie down. Now, Julie, you're wondering if this is separate herds or one big herd grazing together. I would say it's an amalgamation of a lot of smaller herds joining into a bigger herd. You've probably got a number of matriarchs here, and then when they come together, it's almost like a little bit of an amalgamation of the groups, and you can see that within the group there are specific smaller groups that do move around. So it's like any larger population of any kind of species, especially mammals. You can have groupings coming together, and there are dominance hierarchies within those smaller groups, and then there will be in the larger group as well. But I don't think this is one particular herd with one matriarch. I think there's most likely a number of them, and they probably shift around and move together in different times. But here they're coming together because of the resources, and the resource being fantastic grazing and lovely wet underfoot. It's almost like that time of year. For us in this part of Africa, Christmas is hot and sunny. Now, Jenny, you're wondering if there's any vegetation that elephants won't eat. Well, there isn't much that I've seen that they don't eat. They don't like to eat dry wood, and sorry, if Archie can just have a look, there's a little bit of an argy-bargy going on there. It's probably 2 young males, or reasonably young. They bulk feeders, so there's not too much selection going on. They literally throw everything back. The juicier the better, but they do have a sweet tooth. And this I've seen in particular in the Sabi Sands area, in the Greater Kruger National Park, where there's the what is it that you kiss under? The mistletoe. That's it. You kiss under the mistletoe around Christmas, and the elephants, they don't kiss under the mistletoe, but what they do is they push over big knobthorn trees, which is where the mistletoe is normally situated, and that's because of the little tinkerbirds who have gone and eaten the fruit, and it sticks to the seeds stick to their bill because it's got a very sticky mucus, and they then fly off to another knobthorn and they wipe their bill and the sticky seeds off on another branch, and then the mistletoe grows there. But it's got lovely sweet flowers that is full of nectar, and the elephants know this, and they push down big trees just to get to these lovely sweet tasting flowers of the mistletoe, which is quite a shame for the big tree, but it's also great for all the little ecosystems that will then come about. Now, I've said it before, but there is a saying, an African proverb, that when two elephants' bulls fight, it's the grass that suffers the most. Now, Sherry from Rhode Island, you're wondering if they're playing or if they're actually fighting. It can be a little bit of both. You know, it can, like when two young boys start to play fight, it can sometimes lead into a real fight, and sometimes it can just remain a game. But it's all important for them to establish their little bit of dominance between each other, and also good practice for when they are in the position that they really need to defend themselves or push for dominance. Now, the one elephant on the left there, he looks like he's broken the end of his tusk off. It looks quite square there. But you see the one on the right backing up a little bit? You see, and the one on the left got his ears shown out, trying to make himself look bigger. So look at that, he's now following up behind him, probably just re-establishing, just letting him know, yep, keep walking buddy, keep going. But we're going to sit here a little bit longer. It's totally intriguing, and I'm sure that these elephants are going to continue with their little joust. But in the meantime, let's head over to Taylor, and she can give you a bit of an update.
We're still on our way, although I'm not really sure where the sighting is of this male lion and buffalo actually are. Hopefully we'll bump into someone around here, because I suspect we're in the area now. So that's one thing. Faith, please can I have that question again that you asked me earlier? The one you made me think about. It was from Brent, and it was, do I have a great Christmas safari story to share? And I've been thinking about that for the last few minutes now. I actually don't have anything that's like incredible. I've had every Christmas pretty much for the last few years I've been in the bush. Last year was amazing. Well, it was sad because the internet went down, so we couldn't put out a show, but we had a nice time with a camp. It actually felt like a Christmas, which was quite cool. And then I've had two really cool Christmases in the bush that I can remember. The others I actually cannot even remember what I did. The one was maybe in 2013 or 14, where I took my guests out, and instead of doing a safari in the morning, we took the boats out and we went all the way down from the lodge, which was on the river, to the mouth at one of the beaches. And then I took a champagne and orange juice, cheese, and sort of snacky breakfast. And off we went, and then we climbed a sand dune, and I set up an umbrella and I set up the stop. And it was really nice. It was a beautiful, perfect day, not a breath of wind. Water was like glass. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. And then we saw the southern, it wasn't southern right whale, sorry, there was a huge pod of dolphins that were swimming around in the bay, which was really quite cool. So that was nice. And then the other one was, for Christmas Eve, we went out and we told the guests to go back to their room and get jackets and things like that. And then they jumped back in the cars pretty much straight away. And we had set up, the managers had set up this massive dinner in the bush with a huge bonfire, so we had dinner out in the bush, which was quite nice. And then we sat out pretty much almost until the next time we had to go on safari, but luckily we didn't have to go out on safari. Everybody was quite happy to sleep in, and we played games around the fire with all the guests at this one private camp. It was so nice. I had hyenas calling and lions roaring in the distance. So that was quite nice. Those are the two that sort of stand out to me. Otherwise, I'm trying to think. Lots of Christmas hats involved, always crackers. It's always a festive, fun time, and to be out on a safari. And it's going to start to get busy again in the triangle. A lot of families come out and do safari holidays. So we will start to see more and more cars coming around, which is good because it means it's going to help us find the animals. I'm still looking for the sighting. I don't understand. I got Serena and I got 4 kilometer sign, and now we've come from the 4 kilometer sign going towards Serena. I know there's a quarry just down below Serena on the right, but I think there's also a few quarries that are down here off to the east, back towards the river. But we'll check this section first and then we can come back around. But I don't see cars. But yeah, it's a tough one. We're searching. Ralph doesn't seem to be moving away from those elephants. I'm kind of envious with such a large herd. Let's go see what they're up to now.
Yes, thanks, Taylor. There's a little bit of a Mexican standoff still continuing here, and you can almost hear the good, the bad, and the ugly in the background. Look at that. Who's gonna back down? Oh, the youngsters. Now, there seems to be a little bit of action, but I think these 2 youngsters, they're gonna possibly just fizzle out. So we'll just wait and see if they start to continue a little bit. I hope there's be a little bit more action, but we don't want to press them into a complete fight. But they are of the age where they can start to fight for real, and especially where you've got big groups of elephants like this, there is a little bit of a power struggle. And that's where I go back to that African proverb that really makes a lot of sense, where when 2 bull elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers the most. And that goes right through to power struggles with humans. When you've got kings or presidents or incumbent presidents and everybody fighting over power for countries, it's normally the poverty-stricken people on the ground that suffer the most. And we watch these guys. We'd hope that they can settle their differences without continuing too much, but a lot of head-butting can go on, and generally face-to-face kind of standoffs. I've seen a lovely standoff in Etosha National Park where there was a whole herd of elephants next to the waterhole, and it was mostly females with youngsters, and there was one young bull, probably around one of these individuals' age, and he was pushing his weight around, trying to mate with the females and pushing everybody around. And you could see there was quite a lot of consternation with the adult females who were trying to push back a little bit, and it was becoming a little bit stressful for them. But off in the distance there was a big bull elephant that came towards the waterhole, and this was unbeknownst to the youngster. He carried on with his shenanigans, and the big bull just walked around the waterhole and towards the youngster. And the youngster eventually realized he was there. He spun around and he charged the big bull. And they literally went head to head. The bull just took a few steps forward and stood his ground, and the youngster hit heads with him. I tell you, it was a thud that we felt in the ground from about 50 meters away where we were watching from, and they stood head to head like that for a good minute, and eventually the youngster backed off, turned around and walked away, and the whole situation was just calm from there. And it just showed how a big bull elephant can really just settle an entire herd of elephants. Now, Brent, you're wondering if elephants can kill each other when they fight? Yes, absolutely. I've actually witnessed this once, and it was two big bull elephants. The one was the dominant bull, and it was actually his son that eventually challenged him, but he was also an adult at this time, and they fought to the death. The youngster actually tusked him through his side after a very lengthy battle. It went on for the most part of the day, and these two were after each other, and obviously the older dominant father figure wasn't ready to relinquish power, and the youngster was ready to take it, and that is quite literally what he did. And it got to the point where he was really jabbing him with the tusks, and it was becoming quite gruesome, but I was managing the reserve where this was happening, and I got a vet in, and unbeknownst to the elephants, we literally darted the older bull and just eased his pain. The youngster carried on and continued to kill him. So it does happen, and that is nature. It is not nice sometimes, but it's a necessary evil. Sometimes elephants need to establish their dominance, and if one won't back down, well, it needs to then go all the way. But it's still, just look at this. It is. Could you ask for anything more? I mean, it's one of those scenes that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Oh my word. Did I just watch an elephant give birth? Over there, Archie. Straight ahead. Was it throwing dust on itself? Where's my binos gone? Maybe it was just dust. I thought I just saw an elephant giving birth, but I'm probably mistaken. Maybe I'm getting overexcited. Quite possible with such a big group of them like this, and they do give birth randomly. I don't mean that in that an elephant just randomly gives birth, but they don't have a specific time of year when they would give birth. I'm just watching it. It's throwing a little bit of dust under its belly, which can happen when they do give birth, but I think I might have been mistaken. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure at some stage we will see one giving birth. I have seen one of the desert elephants give birth to a little youngster, and I had a group of French people, and we had been following the desert elephant tracks for 3 days, and eventually I managed to come around a bend in the dry river bed, and in front of me there finally was a female elephant, and lo and behold, as I saw her, she gave birth to a little baby. And what we did was I backed off from her because she was quite nervous that we were around, and obviously it wasn't even in a game reserve. It was in Damaraland, which is where there's the last free-roaming population of elephant on the planet, and so she wasn't used to vehicles, and she got a little bit stressed, so I backed up, and we watched her for a while, and she threw sand on her belly, which is what they do. Eventually they disappeared off into the brush. So it was heading towards sunset, so we then went along down the dry riverbed, and we went for about 5 kilometers from where we spotted this birth of the baby elephant, and we found ourselves a lovely spot to set camp, and that's what we did. We had a lovely barbecue, and we went about setting up the tents. I did that for the guests. I normally sleep next to the fire, and so that's what I did. I rolled out my bedroll next to the fire, and after dinner we had a glass of wine and went to bed, and the moon came up. It was absolutely beautiful, and with me sleeping in open air, which I love to do, it was stunning, and it was full moon, and in the middle of the night I woke up to a slurping sound. It was really strange. I thought there was something going on with the vehicle. Was it leaking? What was going on? So I sort of looked around, and in the moonlight, about 80 meters away from me, in the dry riverbed, there was this little baby suckling from its mom. It was almost like this, but totally different in that I will never forget the sight of this little baby drinking from its mother, not even a day old, in the moonlight. It was absolutely out of this world. So there's another little story about elephants giving birth, and very special to be around these animals. It's almost like we're walking with dinosaurs. Now, James, you're wondering how different are the desert elephants in Namibia to these elephants here in the Mara? Well, James, it is still exactly the same species, Loxodonta africana, but the desert elephants are just slightly more adapted to dry conditions. So instead of them having to drink water every single day, they can literally go for up to 3, 4, and I have heard even up to a week in days without drinking. But then when they do come across water, they drink a lot. And they also can go for extended periods without eating. But then they know the very nutritional vegetation or plants and trees that they dig up, and bulbs and roots. So they dig this up, and they almost have an intelligent way of surviving in this very water scarce environment, but exactly the same species. And I have mentioned it before, but it's very similar to us as humans. Think about how we adapt to our environment. For instance, the Eskimos are very adept at living in very cold conditions. The Sherpas of the Himalayas, they can survive in high altitudes because they are born with more white blood cells. And the Bushmen, or the Khoisan people of the old African regions, and in particular southern Africa and the Kalahari, they are very similar to that of the desert elephants, where they almost have expandable stomachs, and when they do eat, they can gorge themselves almost like a lion, and then they can go for up to a week without eating. So it is all down to just adaptation of different areas. Those desert elephants, they do sometimes mix with the Etosha elephants, which are in the national park there, and they breed with them with viable offspring that is no different to any of them. It's all just learned behavior and what they adapt to in terms of their environment. So if you live for a month with drinking very little water, you start to adapt, and you can actually survive on that. But you wouldn't want to go immediately into a desert environment and think that you could just have 1 glass of water when you are sweating out probably 5 liters of water in a day. You are going to come short. But if you do that over an extended period of time, you can slowly go with less water and also less food. But then when you do eat, you want to eat nutritional food that is going to then take you through those times. Coralie, you're wondering if that elephant that was lying down has gotten up yet. I think if Archie zooms over onto that side, I think it looks like it has gotten up and it has moved away. So that's the answer there. He didn't lie down for very long. He was lying down for a little while, and then he shifted and he lay down again, but it looks like he's gotten up and moved off. So that confirms my theory that they don't really do it for too long. And it does have a lot to do, I believe, fully with that breathing and the heavy bones. And you see there's a lot of egrets running around below the feet of the elephants, and that's all to do with just picking up on the insects that they bump up. And it's quite funny because you can often see the little baby elephants charging at these egrets, trying to chase them off. Oh, and over there, Archie, we've got that little baby, and I think just behind him there's a hammerkop as well. And there's an egret there. Yeah, so I think I'm going to sit here for a little while longer, and then as it starts cooling down, we'll maybe go and look for some predators. But in the meantime, let's go over to Taylor, who I think might have found what she's been looking for.
finally, my goodness, we've been searching far and wide for quite some time now. Now, we're just sitting at a distance. We're saving our repositioning moves. We're going to be strategic about them. But here's a sight that I have not seen for a very long time. And that is a lion sitting with a buffalo. This is something that we see quite regularly in the Sabi sand. But we do know how much tougher the buffalo are up here in the Mara, and they give the lions a serious run for their money. I think I've seen lions being chased around by buffalo more than I've seen lions feeding on buffalo since I've been up here in the Mara. But it looks like it's maybe a female or a youngster that of, and you can see he has started feeding upon it. So I don't know how old it is or when he's made this kill, but when I spoke to Jeffrey about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours ago, he said that he hadn't even opened up the carcass just yet. So I assume that it's fairly fresh because not much has been eaten off of that carcass at all. Bless you. And he doesn't seem to be particularly old either. I think he's a fairly young lion. Obviously, look at these beautiful mane is just starting is not a word, starting to darken up. And hopefully he'll stand up and he'll reveal himself a little bit more before I try and guess his age. But I reckon he's probably between 4 and 5 years old, somewhere around there. He could also be an old lion. Maybe if he shows us his teeth, that will reveal a little bit more. One thing I have noticed about out here is that a couple of the lions seem to look all beautiful. For instance, like Notch 2. He looks lovely when he's got his mouth closed. And as soon as he snarls or does a big yawn, he really does reveal his age by his yellow stained teeth, and they're all broken. And we must remember, not all lions get big beautiful manes like Scar either. Some of them are slightly more on the tattered side, but still quite cool to come across a scene like this. And it's quite funny because Manu and I passed this massive herd of buffalo and we laughed and we said, the migration is back. Of course we were just joking. Now, Brad, you're wondering if this lion is not eating because he's hungry. He's not hungry. He's probably just devoured as much as he could. So he's constantly going to keep feeding on this carcass throughout the night. But from my understanding, this is a fairly fresh kill. And he's panting quite heavily. You can see his whole body is moving quite a bit. And I don't think that's necessarily just from the heat because there's a nice cool breeze blowing about. I think that's because there's so much pressure from all the food in his stomach pushing up against his diaphragm, not allowing him to take long, deep breaths. So that's normally when you see them panting quite a bit after they've eaten. So he will eat again. And with male lions, my goodness, they can gobble up an enormous amount. And there's no rush for him either. So he'll just eat little bits. Obviously, he'll gorge himself for the first time that he feeds, getting as much in as he can. Even though he is a male lion, he's still here on his own. And there's lots of other coalitions around. There's obviously the musketeers, who don't normally roam too far away from this area. And then there's lots of young males starting to, get to the point where they're going to, not tolerate single male lions anymore. They're going to start standing up to them and chasing them around. For instance, those Chelly boys could come through here and quite easily give him a bit of a run for his money and chase him right off of his fresh buffalo kill, or a really big clan of hyena. 30 or 40 hyena pestering one male lion would probably be enough to send him on his way as well. But he'll put up a good fight though, that's for sure. Who knows? Maybe we get to see some amazing interactions like that this evening. That's something that will definitely, I would look forward to, is to see a little bit more hyena and lion interaction. I haven't actually seen too much of that. In fact, just the odd hyena hanging around. We were very fortunate to watch that hyena come in and try and steal, and successfully did steal the carcass away from the leopard. Some of you may remember that from about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago. That sighting with Sebastian across the river was spectacular. But that hyena that came through definitely showed that leopard who was boss. Here we go. Let's see if we can get a look at his teeth as he's got his mouth open. Turn and look at us, please. Now, a great question from Matt. You're wondering how long would this buffalo carcass last for a single male lion? Well, I suppose it depends on a number of different factors, and some of them which we've just discussed. If all goes well and no other predators come through and chase him off of this kill, and he is able to eat it from start to finish, he could probably be here for the next 2 days, a day and a half, 2 days. it's either a female or a sub-adult. So it's not massive, but one lion on its own definitely would take some time to feed off of a buffalo carcass like that. It's quite a good meal. You can see he hasn't even removed any of the stomach contents just yet. I think he's probably just opened up the stomach and possibly just fed around maybe the hindquarters, something along those lines, and he'll eventually get to those other bits a bit later. When he does open up that stomach, though, there's an unmistakable smell from the rest of there we go, now you can see his big belly from the grass that was still on its way through the digestive process, and all those stomach acids and things don't smell particularly nice either. So that's going to lure in jackal and other lions and hyenas, of course. He doesn't really have to worry about vultures at the moment, because he's made us kill late enough in the evening that I don't think anybody has spotted him, because I haven't seen any gathering around in the trees nearby. So he's fine. But tomorrow morning is going to be a completely different situation. It'll be nice to actually come back. Maybe he abandons his carcass, but he's got nowhere to hide it. He's got nowhere to drag it. He's going to have to drag that carcass hundreds and hundreds of meters if he is going to want to try and conceal it at some point, because there's actually not a tree nearby. So I spoke nonsense when I said the vultures sitting in the trees nearby. They've perched themselves quite far away too. Now, Kristen, you're wondering if I think that perhaps this buffalo was sick or injured. That's always a possibility, most certainly. However, it could have just been a buffalo that was at the wrong place at the wrong time, or at the right place in the right time for the lion. Of course, a complete opposite for the buffalo. We did see a really big herd not too far away from here. I suspect that this buffalo belonged to that herd, whether it was tailing too far behind and obviously fell victim to this male lion, or perhaps he chased them around a little bit, and maybe it was a healthy buffalo. Oh, look, here we go. Speaking of some of the scavengers, one of my favorite animals, and a lot of your favorite animals too, is a black-backed jackal. Hello. And it's an adult. Not the juveniles that we have been seeing over the last few days. We're much further away, so they're not going to be related whatsoever. Yes, I think, very jumpy though, and rightfully so when you're around the biggest cat in Africa. I think this jackal's just going to run right behind the car. You can see that's one of the ranger's vehicles out on safari. Just going to go around. That's quite cool, actually. And I think that this little jackal is actually using the cars to try and conceal itself, which is a very, very, very clever technique. And you do see that technique being used not only up here in the Mara when animals are hunting, but also down in the Kruger National Park. It's no secret. Animals have actually adapted to the abundance of vehicles and taken it in their stride. Now, this jackal's uncertain. Manu, I think it thinks you're tasty. Now, you can't go under the car either. There we go. So deciding what to do. I think you could go over, little jackal, and have a snack. I don't think that lion is even going to know if you were to come round. The only thing, though, is that a jackal doesn't really have as strong of a bite force or as sharp a teeth as lions do. So it might struggle to pull some chunks of flesh from the side closest to us, because it doesn't look like there's any part of the buffalo closest to us that's been opened. And that means that jackal's going to have to go around to the other end. You can see there's some cars getting closer. Quite lean as well. Actually looks like it could be a female, just because she looks quite slight. Yeah, it is a girl. Hello, beautiful. Definitely looks like she needs a meal, though. Looking a bit on the slimmer side. She's got her summer body ready. Jenny, you're wondering if I think that this jackal's going to steal the kill? Not the entire thing. That day that I see a jackal dragging a buffalo carcass, my goodness, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm not working in the bush anymore. That would be petrifying. Don't you think, Manu? Imagine a jackal dragging... There we go. The lion's seen the jackal now, though. So no, I don't think it's going to take the entire carcass, but it's definitely going to try and sneak a few mouthfuls, that's for sure. But that male lion has now seen the jackal. Sometimes the lions don't even mind them being around, but you can see that tail's now wagging, and the fact that he keeps lifting up his head, he's probably not too impressed by the fact that this jackal thinks that it can just walk on over, to this buffalo, which he has worked very hard to take down and just reap his rewards. It's a very efficient way, of course, of feeding, scavenging. And jackals know that, especially when you need a quick meal. Matt, you said that those jackals are sneaky. They are indeed. They most certainly are sneaky, sly creatures. I really am enjoying them, and I've been saying this quite often now. I've definitely learnt a lot more about jackals out here in the Mara than I've ever been able to before, just because they're so, well, they're just everywhere out here. They're so common, which is really nice. And the fact that we can watch the youngsters growing up, and some of them have become quite habituated to the cars already, is really amazing and really valuable. And I'm enjoying the intimate time I've had a chance to spend with these animals. There you go, he's sitting up now. Maybe he's a bit older, this lion. His teeth look quite good. Maybe he's closer to 5.5. He kind of looks like how the Birminghams looked when they first arrived, or when the Charleston males first arrived down in the southwestern corner of the Sabi Sand in South Africa. So I'm going to say he's between 5 and 5.5 years old. Maybe pushing 6. Just because his mane is starting to darken a little bit. But again, that also doesn't mean anything. He might just have a genetic... That means he has a dark mane. Bless you. That wasn't anybody sneezing on our car. That was on another car, and I can't not say bless you. Manu, did that make you laugh? The things we hear out on safari is amazing. But he's a beautiful cat, though. So is this jackal. Now, Alex, you're wondering if jackals are also called coyotes. No, not here in Africa. They're called jackals. We don't have coyotes out here. We have bat-eared foxes, though, and we also have a Cape fox. And you get different types of jackals. But essentially, the jackals are in the Canidae family. So they would have come from wolves long time ago. They're ancestors of one another. Now, come on, big boy. Show us how big and strong you are by getting up and charging and chasing this jackal away. That'll make you feel very proud now, won't it? It's like he's listening to me. Hopefully I can encourage him. I don't know, maybe I've learned lion over the years. And this jackal hasn't quite decided. She wants to go in, though. She's definitely keen. I don't blame her, though. Imagine sitting at a table with a huge turkey, if you're not a vegetarian, otherwise this is not going to sound appetizing to you, and all the roast potatoes and carrots and all the lovely delicious things that go with it, but not being able to have a bite, and everybody else eating around you. That's kind of the position that this jackal's in at the moment. I think everybody's being told to move out now. There's lots of cars that want to come and see this sighting, and it is quite cool. Luckily, we're sitting very, very far away from this lion, so we'll continue to do so, and we'll let the other vehicles rotate a little bit closer. We're quite lucky. We've, of course, got these fancy cameras that allow us to get nice and close without actually intruding on the animals. This is such a nice sighting. I'm glad that this boy has put his head up. And it seems as though the felines are going to be at trend this afternoon, well, at least here in the Mara. Rolf has moved on from his elephants, and he's found some cats like ours.
Yes, I have found some cats, Taylor, and it wasn't very far from the elephants, and it seems like it's the same pride that we found yesterday afternoon from quite a large distance away, and we're faced with a similar situation again. We've counted now in the time since we've got here 7 lions. There is a couple of youngsters as well. And it seems like it might be that Marsh breakaway group. It's either that, which we're leaning towards, or the Angama pride. But it's one of the two. We'd have to see them a little bit clearer to be able to say for sure. But they're keeping us on our toes. We've been struggling to find them, so I'm quite happy that we have now. And just a reminder, the reason we don't drive off-road here is because we have black cotton soils in this particular area, and it's very sensitive to off-road driving. The tracks can take a long time to recover, and you really cut into the soil, especially when it's wet. So they don't allow off-road driving here, and we can't go any closer, but luckily we've got a very strong zoom, as you can see there, coming all the way out. But I think for the time being we're going to sit here. As it gets a little bit cooler, maybe they'll get a little bit more active, but that's the thing with lions and predators. You've always just got to wait around and see what happens, but generally they're very flat. Now, Clifford, you're wondering if lions are more active at night. Generally, yes. They normally sleep, in excess of 18 to 20 hours a day. They can sleep more than that. And generally, they are then active at night, which is a good time for them to be active because they've got an advantage. They can see better in the dark. The other thing is that when it's very hot, their heart rate adds to them being susceptible to exhaustion. So if they are very active during the day, when it's very hot, they can literally exhaust themselves. So they don't want to be doing that too much. But we've seen a lot of lion kills during the heat of the day. They're optimists, and they don't also stick to the boxes that we as humans like to put them in. So they are known as being nocturnal animals or active at night, but they can be active during the day, and they can hunt during the day, but the chances are way slimmer of seeing a lion killed during the day. It's normally in that early morning, late afternoon, around sunset, when your chances are the best. So once it starts cooling off, we've got a little bit of a breeze coming through, so it's not very hot. And you can see that they're sitting out in the open as well. If it was sort of upper 80 into 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you generally find them flat out under a tree in the shade. But you can see that they're quite happy sitting out in the sun with a little bit of a breeze blowing over them. But they're looking in the wrong direction because obviously everything downwind of them, which is the direction that they're looking in, would know that they're there. So the best way for them to be hunting would be into the wind, and once they start looking into the wind and walking into the wind, that's a good indication that they're starting to hunt. But right now, my fear is that this is how they're going to be for a little while. But you never know, there's always a little warthog that comes walking past. Now, Gust, you're wondering if lions like cold weather, and yes, absolutely, they do. Because of what I've just mentioned with the high heart rate, it does enable them to be able to give short bursts of speed and energy. But when it's very hot, then that tends to make them susceptible to exhaustion. So when it's cold and that heart rate is still very high and keeping them nice and warm, high metabolism, then they can actually function much better. So when it's cold, they're actually quite comfortable. And so you'll see that lions, obviously their habits quite a little bit different to that of cheetah, and cheetah evolved now to hunt during the day because they're trying to avoid lions and wild dogs, although wild dogs also hunt similar time, also generally during the day, so not really wild dogs. They're trying to avoid lions and leopard and hyena, which are mostly active at night. So that was their sort of evolutionary path, trying to not get their kills stolen on a daily basis, which is still what happens. Lions and hyenas, they can just sit and watch cheetah, who are quite successful in their hunting, and they just watch them and then move in and chase them off their kill. So the cheetah goes through expending all of that energy, making a kill, and the lion just waltzes in and takes it away from him, and then he has to expend that energy all over again. And that can lead to actual death of cheetah, because if they do that a few times, expending all that energy and not getting any reward for it and any protein to replenish the energy, they can literally start to go down and lose condition and eventually die because of it, because it's that domino effect once more. They lose energy and then they can't efficiently hunt properly, and so then it sort of starts to spiral downwards. So cheetah, the most successful ones are the ones that kill quickly, eat quickly, and get it done as fast as possible before the other predators start to take notice. That's why they'll also chase the vultures off as quickly as possible, because the vultures also tend to bring in the other scavengers and predators. And don't think that lions, because they are known as the king of the jungle, that they don't scavenge. They are very adept at scavenging and stealing other predators' prey. And in parts of Namibia, the spotted hyena are actually the apex predator above the lions, and the lions scavenge off the hyenas. So the roles are totally reversed in certain parts. But generally, you put a male lion in the mix, and he'll sort those hyenas out like Skittles. Now, Matt, you're wondering what is the evolutionary reason why lions don't have sweat glands? That's a very good question. I would hazard a guess at saying that it's to do with that energy proficiency or maintaining of energy and the bursts of energy that they need to give off. I think us as humans, we're very water inefficient. We waste water by sweating a lot, but it does assist in cooling us. However, it's a real waste of water. So it's for me, these animals, they are more efficient at retaining their water, and then obviously panting instead of sweating. So I think it's along those lines of evolved to save water in a big way, because they can't walk around with bottles of water like we do. They need to head down and waste quite a lot of energy getting to a water point and going and drinking before they then go off and hunt. So I think it's mostly to do around that. So we're going to sit here a little bit longer, see what these lions get up to. Hopefully they get up and start to move around. Maybe we'll be even luckier and get them hunting. But in the meantime, let's go over to Taylor, who I think her lions might be doing a little bit more exciting things than these are.
No, sadly, Rolf, not quite. I was hoping that we were going to get some really nice jackal and lion interaction, but that doesn't seem to be the case this afternoon. Our male lion is just watching all the cars at the moment. He's a little bit on the jumpy side, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because he's on his own. Maybe he seems fairly okay with the vehicles. But we're just going to keep our distance for now, just to let him settle down. Hopefully he'll feel a little bit more comfortable when it's just us a bit later, because I'm hoping that he does start to feed again. It would be quite nice to watch him tear into that carcass. It's definitely been a long time since I watched a male lion devour something at such close quarters. That's one thing, again, that I do really, really miss about the Sabi Sand, is the amount of lion versus buffalo sightings that you do get to witness in the winter months. Obviously, it's not so fair for the buffalo, with there not being much food around and them being weakened, but it is still incredible to see two of the most powerful animals in Africa, battling heads and seeing who comes out the winner, because essentially they've got an even chance, both of them. Buffalo quite easily kill the lion or come out with just a few scratches, and we've seen lions taking on buffalo many, many different times. He's a lovely cat. Have any of you recognized this male lion? Perhaps maybe from Brent or Jamie or Scott or James. I don't know if Rolf has maybe seen him before, but if you have, you can hashtag Safari Live and let me know who you think he is, because I can't recall seeing this male lion. And then I was thinking yesterday with our sighting with those two boys that were fairly flat, I don't know if they were the Chelly boys. I don't think they were. Do you know who I think it was? Because one of them looked a little bit younger than the other, and the other slightly older, obviously. I wonder if they weren't two of the males from the big sausage tree pride, because we weren't too far away from the area that they like to roam around. And just before Big Cat Week, the Safari Live special, a few days prior to that, Manu and I had both one of the younger males and the older boy from that pride mating with females. So I don't know if they maybe just gone off together. Now, that could easily happen too. So a bit of a mystery, but a nice one. I like playing this investigation game that we have to play with all the different animals out here. What's he looking at? I think he's just checking to make sure that nobody's coming around. He also has to be careful, because imagine if the musketeers get wind of this and they come charging in. He's going to be in big trouble. Now, Sherry from Rhode Island, you're wondering if this male would share his kill with the females of the pride that he belongs to. Whether he belongs to a pride of females, I'm not so sure. He could quite easily, but I think if any females come along, I don't know how he would behave. I don't know how they would behave. They'd also be quite cautious of approaching an unknown male lion on a kill. You know, he could also set off on the defensive mark, and they don't want to get themselves into trouble. So it just depends. If it was one of the prides that he sees, so say he was a big territorial male and he saw more than one pride, most certainly he'll allow them to come and feed. But if he is just a stranger popping past through the area, which we do see often with these young male lions, not really having a permanent home, then I think they'll be wary. Maybe they'll even try and chase him off it. That could happen too. They could all try and band together and do something along those lines too. But you never know what could happen out here, because there's big clans of hyena. And like I said, one lion all on his own, he's going to find it particularly difficult to try and defend his kill. He'll try. That's one thing about a male lion, is they definitely have a lot of fight in them, and they don't give up very easily. They're not stupid, so they're not going to get themselves into a situation where they're going to come off second best. I mean, they'll try and get away if they can before that even gets to that point. But not much else. I don't know where our jackal's gone. I think she's given up. Perhaps she's gone to rest in the grass somewhere. Ah! And Monique, you're actually wondering where that jackal went. I don't know. I don't think she is going to go away. I think she's going to linger about. It's not like she's got anything else planned, although she was quite hungry, so perhaps she pokes her nose around this long grass and sees if she can get a little protein bar in the form of a grasshopper or sorts. Maybe a little rodent or a bird that's nesting. And I definitely think she's going to be around, hanging about here, waiting for that opportunity to come and get some prime beef. I mean, who wouldn't? If you know that meal is around, it would be silly for her to go off and, move too far away when she knows that the lion could either get chased off, the hyenas could come in, do a bit of cleaning, but the carcass is not going to be cleaned up completely. There's no vultures now. It's a bit late, and vultures are the ones out here that will completely clean a carcass right down to the bone. Hyenas will still leave, chunks of flesh around, which will be perfect for the jackal. So as long as that jackal gets into this carcass before the vultures do, it'll probably have a fair chance at getting the odd bite. Goodness, the flies have really been terrible over the last few days. Horrible biting things at the moment. I can't imagine what that lion must feel like, especially sitting so close to a carcass. They'll all be gathering around, surely. Now you can see them flying every now and then. They're definitely still there. Everyone's starting to leave now. Now, Debbie from Vancouver, you're wondering if male lions will stay within a home range or do they wander far and wide? It just depends on their age and if they have a pride or not. This lion, I think he's moving around. I think he's hopping in between all the different male sort of territories that are within this area. And you'll find that he probably doesn't stay in the same spot for more than a couple of days before moving off. So, you can see these young males anywhere on the reserve. I mean, so sometimes I have to remind myself not to be shocked that, yes, we saw, say, for example, the Chelly boys at Hippo Pools, and the next time we see them down on the Tanzanian border. It's definitely possible when you're that age and you don't have a permanent home. I think the best bet for this male, if he isn't part of a coalition already, is to try and join up, maybe with some males that are even slightly younger than him, just so that he's got a better chance of survival, because he's a lovely looking lion. He's very handsome. He's got very striking eyes, but he could do with some partners. I mean, this could also be one of the males that was trying to kill the Paradise Pride cubs. Apparently there was one lioness that had some very young cubs near Serena, and there was a male that was chasing after her. Remember, we had that sighting with my first sighting of Scar, and he came walking out on the road and he stole the kill from a young male lion. I wonder if it's not this boy, if it's not the same fellow. That was such a long time ago. His mane could have quite easily darkened in the last 2-3 months. So, you know, the possibilities of who this lion is actually endless. I don't think he's come from Tanzania. He's very relaxed and he's quite far into this area. So he's probably from around here, maybe from the northern conservancies. Maybe he's moved down. I suppose he could have come from Tanzania. You know, it was actually a silly thing for me to say. Of course he could have come from Tanzania. They can move that far. Now, Aditya, you're wondering, why is his face not filled with blood if he made the kill? Maybe he killed it a lot earlier and then he rested because he was exhausted and he groomed himself. That could have happened. He's definitely fed off of it, though, because you can see that big bulging belly, and so we know that he's eaten it, but he doesn't have a lot of blood on it. So I think he's just cleaned himself up. They are quite tidy, and if he does leave himself all bloody, if he's annoyed with the flies on a day when he's nice and clean, you can imagine how they'd completely swarm his head and his ears and his nose, which is not particularly nice. Well, I know I don't enjoy it, and we see them often showing how annoyed they are with the flies or anything that bites them. So he's probably just cleaned himself up a bit, and yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, we'll go and have lots of the vehicles are leaving now, so we'll be able to have a chance at some point, hopefully in the next 10 minutes or so, to move around and get a different angle, see if we can see any suffocation marks on the buffalo around its snout, and then I think if we get much closer, we'll be able to have a closer, more detailed look. Maybe he just came across this carcass. Maybe it was already dead. Who knows? No one really knows. I wasn't here to see him take it down. I wasn't here to see any of these things, unfortunately. And I don't think any of the cars that have just arrived have done the same. Well, we're going to try and get a better view and a closer inspection of this buffalo carcass. Rolf is on the move. I wonder where he's headed now.
Yes, everybody, we were just on the move, but look what we managed to spot in amongst the marsh. There's another female. This is a different spot, and I believe a different pride altogether. We're still quite far away, so we're going to try and see if we can get a road going closer, but I think we might be disappointed in that it goes around the edge of that marsh and along the trees. So we're going to try and see if we can maybe get a little bit closer, but I don't know, we maybe not. So we'll see anyway. We continue to drive along, so join us on our little road of discovery. We can't always just sit with the predators. We need to get out and see what else is happening and appreciate all the other little things. And it's amazing, sometimes you just need to drive around and then you be amazed at what you find. I mean, even like that female lion now that we've just spotted over in the marsh, we didn't see that, and you would think it would be quite easy to see, but from a distance you don't see her at all. It's only once you get a little bit closer, so that lends all the more reason for us to drive around and see what's happening. You can't just always sit in one place. Sometimes it's very good to sit and enjoy being with some animals, but also sometimes good just to drive around and try your luck. Use educated guesses as where you think you might find particular animals. Obviously you want to drive along the thickets and near rocky areas. If you want to be finding leopard and black rhino, Next to the river, obviously, you're going to find all your baboons and your hippos. Out on the plains here, we've got the elephant and the lions and the ever-present topi, who always seem to climb up onto a termite mound like a sentry and do his bit of spotting. I wonder if he spotted that female lion off in the distance. He's looking in that direction. There's some bones there, it looks like of a hippo. I wonder if the lion's got hold of a hippo at some stage. But now, Nate, you're wondering how I would rank the rarity of all the African cats. I'm not quite sure on the context of that question, but if you're asking which are the more rarer of the cats, I would say it's probably some of your smaller little cats, like the eastern red-footed cat, which are very small little cats. They're almost even smaller than most of your domestic cats. And the African wild cat is also becoming quite rare because it interbreeds with the domestic cat, and that's actually where the domestic cat comes from, is the African wild cat. You know, in the age of Cleopatra, she actually domesticated the African wild cat, and now we have them in all wonderful shapes and sizes, and hairy ones and hairless ones, a very strange looking rat-like cat. It's quite a dichotomy, that. But yes, people love to have cats as pets as well, but they still maintain that very wild habit of still hunting lizards and birds, and even if they've got enough food, they still continue to do it. But I love to watch domestic cats because, especially when I was learning about behavior of lions and leopard for walking purposes, it's quite important to watch a domestic cat because their behavior is very similar throughout the cat kingdom. So important to watch them and the way that they walk, their tracks. And so you know, my parents, they used to have a cat, and when I was growing up, we always had cats, and I used to watch them quite closely. Even as a little youngster, I was very interested in how their behavior made them react with the wildlife and the way that they walked, etc. So you can watch your domestic cats, and they are very similar in habit to a lot of our local wild species. Let's not forget that they were once wild, and a lot of them still maintain that wild nature. It's like dogs as well. There is still that very wild element to them at some stage, and sometimes just takes a little flip in their brain and they become totally instinctive. For instance, when you see dogs that sorry, I'm now heading along the wrong road. When you see dogs, and if you watch them, if one dog is sick, you'll often see other dogs attack it, and that's quite instinctive. Whoa, I've fallen in an aardvark hole. Oopsie. Let's hope we get out. Oh, this might be fun. We're gonna get out. I just use my handbrake. This is when the 4x4ing skills come into play. We're in an aardvark hole, right on the edge. Let's see if we can. Okay, now we're over it. Now I've got to try and keep us straight that we don't get stuck in it. There's a massive hole right underneath the vehicle. Now, how are we gonna? I need to go back in it to get out of it. Alright, while I try and get out of this hole or stay out of it, let's go over to Taylor, who I think is driving around.
I've got the biggest smile on my face. I just want to rescue somebody. That's all I want to do. I want to be the tow master, if you will. No, that sounds terrible. I don't want to be the tow master. I could have come up with something better. Hey, then that was atrocious. Let's scrap that. Maybe you could come up with a better name. But Ralph, if you need assistance, I'll quite happily come and pull you out. I'll be so excited. You'll make my year. I can redeem myself by doing that. But we've just left our male lion. He's gone so flat you can't even see his head anymore in the long grass. And we tried to have a closer inspection of that carcass. I mean, it's also in the grass and I couldn't get a clear view. But she looks quite thin. When we moved around, we could actually see how her hips were quite exposed. So I don't know if it was maybe the buffalo was sick, maybe there's something wrong with it and went down quite easily. I mean, sometimes buffalo take an hour and a half to 2 hours before they take their last breaths, and then other days they can take 5 minutes, which I've seen a sighting with the buffalo that was particularly thin. So maybe he didn't have to put up much of a fight. But I do know that when Jeffrey was in the sighting earlier, he said the buffalo carcass hadn't touched it yet, as in he hadn't opened it up. So he's the one that's definitely done that. There's no one else around that could have done that. But I don't know if he's going to eat, and we could just sit there for hours and hours to watch him maybe take 2 mouthfuls and then go back to sleep again. So I thought that we would move on and try our luck elsewhere. Although I don't know how much luck we're actually going to have out on the safari. The animals seem to have moved away from this northern section of the triangle. Now Brad, you're wondering if you get poison ivy out in this grass. I haven't seen any poison ivy. What you do get though is there's some nettles that are nasty. Not everywhere though, just in small pockets. And then there's lots of thorny shrubs. I mean, they don't necessarily have a poison to them and are going to make you itch or break out in a rash like poison ivy would or the stinging nettles would, but can prick you and they can become a bit irritating, you get a little bit itchy. But other than that, it's pretty much just the grass. Until you move away from this area and you go up towards the escarpment or towards the forest, then you're going to find other vegetation types, of course. But this is a very popular lion area, so maybe we're going to see some more. So I'm going to keep my eye out. And it's cooled down. The sun has been behind the clouds for the last half an hour now, so it is very, very nice. And I think that, or I'm hoping, that's what I'm hoping, that a lot of the animals would have started moving around, particularly the cats, or at least the hyenas, because even that hyena we had earlier didn't look like it was getting up to do anything anytime soon. Oh, but that was quite a distance away though. We'll carry on down this main road for a while. Now, an interesting question from Ben, which it's a difficult one to answer. You're wondering, with the grass being so tall, do I think that the migration would come back early? Not necessarily. I think that the grass gets tall after the short rains, so I don't think that this is out of the ordinary. I mean, I spoke to Jahawi about it before he left, and he's obviously been in the Mara for a few years, and he says it pretty much does the same thing every single year. After the wildebeest leave, they get the short rains, the grass grows particularly tall and recovers quite nicely and starts to go a little bit yellow towards February, March, and then the big rains come again and everything grows and is tall, and then the wildebeest have to come through and mow it. So I don't know. I also haven't spent enough time in the Mara to sort of really comment on something like that, because this is the first time I've experienced the migration for myself, so I'm also learning and seeing things for the first time. So hopefully I'll be able to yay, insect in my eye. That's my favorite thing in the whole world. Drown. I'm just going to close my one eye very quickly and drown this insect. Okay, it's not moving around anymore. We'll try and take it out at some point. So yeah, so I hope that I get to come back for the migration again next year, just to sort of follow through. It will be quite nice to see them arriving, because I didn't see them arriving. The migration was in full swing when I arrived, but I did get to see them go, which was pretty spectacular. So I've been very lucky though. One of the cool places I've been able to travel and work. It's been a lot of fun. Definitely Mara has been amazing. So it seems as though Rolf has managed to get himself unstuck. I'm a little bit sad I didn't have to go and rescue him. And he's found another lion.
Yeah, we did manage to get unstuck, and luckily I managed to use all my 4x4ing skills, and we didn't need to get rescued by Taylor, because that would have made her year, I know that, but I think I would have started digging and using the spade before I allowed her to come and rescue us, and that would really have broken my I don't know what. But this male lion is sitting here, lying here in the sun, really irritated by the flies, and it's almost like he can't sleep at all. But he's lying right in front of a warthog burrow. Well, it would have been made by an aardvark, and I'm wondering if there's a warthog lying inside the burrow, and he's now waiting for the warthog to come out. If indeed there is a warthog in there, I sure do feel sorry for him, because he's now got a predator right at his front door. But a very irritated predator at that, and he does look quite full. So, this lovely flat young male lying here in the Masai Mara. It's all coming to you live, all the way from Kenya, and I'm going to be sending you 1,600 miles to the south, to South Africa, where Scott is starting his drive, and I think he might also have some elephants to show you. So let's head over to Scott.
And Tristan and I have just headed out. It's a hot and sunny afternoon in the Lowveld of South Africa. We are in the Sabi Sands Reserve, part of the Greater Kruger National Park, and as you can see, there's a big elephant bull that's making the most of the small waterhole, quenching his thirst. My name's Scott, and I'm teamed up with Senzo on camera this afternoon. Like I said, it's a beautiful sunny day. It only cleared up about... and it was cloudy up until, like I say, about 1 p.m. and it's now cleared up into a beautiful afternoon. Thankfully there is quite a strong breeze blowing, which is going to help keep us cool, because it does get very hot in this part of the world at this time of the year. You'll notice that the elephants also, prior to actually coming to this little waterhole, he was at another one not far from us, and you can see he's covered his body with mud. There's the other little waterhole down there, and I think he's chosen this cleaner water and fresher tasting water to drink after having a kind of mediocre mud bath. He didn't cover his whole body in mud, but you can see he is shimmering a little bit. Their trunks remind me so much of octopus's tentacles, and I love the way they can, look at that, gently sucking up some water. You'll notice I was also trying to suck water right from the top, which will be the least muddy. An elephant can be an absolute nuisance in a lot of lodge areas because they prefer the finer things in life, and they often pull up water pipes to access fresh, tasty water when they know it's about. To go and rub himself up against a tree. They often do that after having a mud wallow. Or another thing that could happen is that he could well start doing some dust bathing, covering himself with some dust. Hello Sinak, you'd like to know if on hot days like this it's common to see elephants along bodies of water, and yes, I think it is fair to say that is the case, especially during the hotter parts of the day. That's when I tend to notice elephants being the most active at waterholes. There's no set rules, but definitely during the hotter parts of the day for obvious reasons. What's interesting though, Sinak, is that because elephants are not territorial, let's just try and get a little bit closer and get up ahead of them. Because they're not territorial, they come and go, and I'm told about 3 weeks ago, just prior to my arrival, there was hardly any elephants around, and now they've all just kind of descended upon Djuma, which is wonderful. They're certainly great animals to view, be it from the vehicle like we're doing now, and also very, very exciting to approach on foot, which we did quite a lot for the first 2 weeks of December. We are looking forward to doing some bushwalks. Fear not, we will be doing some more. It's just that Herbie and Rexon needed to get some time off after spending many hours patrolling this wilderness and doing a great job in finding us a lot of animals. They're an incredibly talented bunch, those two. Okay, well, Ellie seems like it's decided to snack on some large fruited bush willow. So we'll stop here and watch him go about his business. Oh, don't go behind the bush, buddy. Tammy, you've asked an interesting question, and I've actually never seen it happen, but it's not to say that it wouldn't. But he's taken some, what we would call in South Africa, padkos, which means road food in Afrikaans, a snack for the journey. And Tammy, you're wondering if elephants will ever kind of suck water up into their trunk and then go and blow it out in a kind of little muddy wallow to try and create the right slushy consistency for a mud bath. And I think it definitely could happen and may well have happened, but I personally have never seen it happen. It wouldn't surprise me because they are incredibly intelligent animals. Elephants, like I say, they have an ability to get what they want, be it fresh water from pipelines that run into camps. They can even often break in through electric fencing and cash in on the well-manicured gardens of certain lodges. And that's just a couple of examples of how they are very clever beasts. Let's loop ahead of him again. Not too sure. Battling to predict where his movements are going to be. He's kind of chopping and changing a little bit. And ideally, if we get further enough ahead of him and park in a spot that he's planning on heading towards, then hopefully he will continue all the way towards us and brush past our vehicle. I think we are going to get lucky here. Let's see what happens. He's just giving that acacia a little sniff. Is it suitable for you? Another good example of how fussy they can be. Anything tasty there? Jeez, it's not looking like this acacia is going to get nibbled on at this stage. Nothing worth snacking on up there, maybe at the base. Some other small saplings popping up. Nope, just picked up the same old branch he carried all the way there. And that was really cool to see, and it goes to show that elephants don't just eat anything in their path. Again, just further emphasizing their fussy nature. Now, what will be interesting here is if he's just going to strip the bark off this little branch, and I'm guessing he is going to... Oh, bless you. Was that a sneeze? Now, I'm guessing, watch closely, that he's going to drop that stick out of his mouth once he's chewed the bark off it. So he's kind of just like kind of spiral it through his mouth, slowly using those very big... Oh no, I was wrong. He swallowed it. Wonderful. Now, I've heard a very wonderful report on the radio that is going to excite a lot of you. And that is that Quarantine, a youngish male leopard who's probably around 4 years old now, was very close to Buffalo's Hook Waterhole, that kind of corner of our traverse this morning, and hopefully he would have come onto our property. So I'm planning on heading up there for the start of the safari. I'm not too sure exactly what Tristan's doing. I think he's going to go and check the southern waterholes around Twin Dams and Treehouse Dam. So those are some exciting prospects for later on. In the meantime, Mia, you would like to know if elephants ever get thorns, I think in their feet or in their body, and I doubt it. They've just got such thick skin that I don't think any thorns are going to be able to penetrate or give them a hard time. I certainly haven't ever seen an elephant limping. Not to say they obviously can't have other injuries that cause them to limp, but no, I've never seen them kind of express any pain or discomfort from standing on something. I guess anything that gets trodden on underneath that massive weight of probably 5 or 6 tons will probably just either push down into the softer earth below or break on impact. Wonderful. Well, we're going to leave this big old boy to continue looking for snacks, and we are going to head off towards the Buffalo's Hook Waterhole in the hope that quarantine is going to be lurking somewhere in that area.
Well, I hope so, Scotty. I hope that you're able to catch up with quarantine. And you may notice that we are also driving in the bush, which I shall explain shortly. If you just give me 2 seconds when I get around this little corner, and then I can tell you exactly who I am and what's going on. So, we're just checking around at the moment. I went quickly to see where that kill was that Tundi had this morning, just to try and see if she was around. And now I'm just checking out some of the waterholes. But before we get any further, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I have got Fergus. There we go, there's the thumb, very jovial once again. And this is obviously live and interactive, so hashtag Safari Live and YouTube chat if you would like to get hold of us. Now, the reason why I've come here is that there was a little mud wallow that had a tiny bit of water just down below me here. It's difficult to see it from this angle. You can just see a bit of the mud sticking out. So I thought I'd just check here. Maybe if she ate, she would have come for water. It was just a kind of quick check. I don't really want to be here for too long because, well, we were with her this morning and I want to give her a little bit of a break over the next couple sort of drives. Also, just to give some of the other guys a chance to maybe get a sighting of that little cub, because we're trying to limit the amount of vehicles and amount of movement around her, and so we're just letting some of the other guys just come into the area and also just have a little look around and let them get a chance to see that beautiful little cub that we managed to see this morning and yesterday afternoon. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to track back to where we saw her leaving that little pipe with the cub, the last visual we had. Check there's nothing over around that area, and then there we're probably going to carry on, and I'm probably going to then head towards Chitwa and see if maybe Hosana or Tingana are around. Now, while I do that, I believe Taylor McCurdy, who must be well rested and full of beans this afternoon after a morning lion, has got the biggest and beefiest of all the animals in the Masai Mara.
Tristan, with that link, you've just made me hungry. Now I want, I don't know, a nice rump steak. Hey, Manu? Manu says, oh yeah. But we have come across a big herd of buffalo not too far away from where that male lion laid with his kill. So I wonder if that buffalo didn't come from this herd. They're all just staring at us at the moment, or a few of them are. But it is just the most beautiful scene that we have at the moment. And that's actually what caught my attention. Obviously, I love sitting amongst buffalo. We're not quite surrounded by them. They're off in the distance. But look at that view. There are really few places in the world where you can see such incredible wildlife, and then to have the escarpment, to have the trees perfectly planted as if they're supposed to be there. They were meant to be there. It truly is spectacular. Very, very lucky. And to be able to witness such beauty every single day. That's definitely something I'll take back with me, is that the Mara, whether it be the Triangle or the Masai Mara National Reserve, are truly the most amazingly beautiful place to view wildlife. It's just got the perfect backdrop in every aspect. And yeah, we're just so lucky to be out here. There's a cow moving through the herd. She looks quite pregnant. Now, Cenac, you're wondering what on earth do those egrets do amongst the buffalo? Very much like what the wattled starlings do, or any of the starling species, and the fork-tailed drongos. They're basically just catching all the insects that are being disturbed as this big herd of buffalo move through. Very, very common to see. And something that I always talk about is my sightings in Zambia and the Lozambizi National Park. I loved watching the cattle egrets sit on not just the buffalo's backs, but also the elephant's backs. So I'm waiting to see which egret is going to be brave enough to sit on an elephant's back when we go and investigate the marsh. So that's a sighting that I'm constantly looking for, because I think that you will all enjoy it. But this is a very relaxed herd of buffalo, and I don't see why they shouldn't be. There's so many of them, and they're all standing quite close to one another, so they've all got each other's backs, and not many brave animals will come through and mess with such a large group. Oh, there we go, there's the egret riding the buffalo. Very cool. It's so much better than seeing the oxpeckers on the animals. I don't know why it makes me all giddy. I feel like a little girl when I see things like that. It just makes me so happy that I can't stop smiling and my cheeks hurt, and then I just start laughing. But that is such a cool scene, especially when the buffalo or the elephants are moving through quite a deep marshy area, you know, and the water's taller than their knees. Then you really see this, if a bird could smile, I promise you'd see the egret smiling, going, yeah, not getting my feet wet today. That's quite cool. There's another one. Yeah. It's so funny. I don't know why I find it so hilarious. Oh, yeah. Jenny, you said buffalo surfing. That's exactly what it is. Manu, he's just playing spot all the egrets on the buffalo this afternoon. It most certainly is, and you can see that some of the egrets are better adapted than others. That one that we were just looking at, if it could, should have its wings out, like it's trying to balance. This one seems to be a bit more used to it, or at least done it a few more times. But the other one looked very nervous all the way up on that buffalo's back. So that was very entertaining. But let's carry on. Let's see what else we can find out here. I'm driving a road that I've never driven before. It's a grassy track, and I don't think I've ever come down it before. So I thought, well, now's a good enough time than ever. And well, it was, because it brought us to this very big herd of buffalo. They're probably going to rest around here tonight. I can't imagine they're going to go too much further. The other thing that I also almost did is I almost threw Richard, who's our Askari, off of the car just now, driving through here, and I tried to avoid a puddle and then went into a little bit of long grass, not to realize that there was another big, well, rather deep puddle where I was. Oi, goes like a buff-crested korhan. And it was quite funny because Manu actually caught Richard's cell phone as it went flinging out of his hand. How cool is that buffalo just standing up on the termite mound? Taller than the rest, wearing an oxpecker on his boss. Very cool. Well, we're having lots of luck with things that lions would like to eat. However, Ralph is clearly the Lion King this afternoon. He's on to another cat.
Yes, thanks, Taylor. And so it seems you nearly throw your Askari out the vehicle, and I nearly get stuck in an aardvark burrow. But yeah, so there's the antics in between the sightings. We've spotted this female who's just gone down now. She's eyeing up a topee, and the topee's looking towards her. She was stalking it, but then it turned towards her, so she's just dropped herself into the grass, and she does look like she wants to hunt, but that topee's still quite a far way off, and she needs to get very close to a topee before she'll be able to run it down, because they are the sprinters of the antelope, and they're very fast. So if she doesn't stalk up to a very close position before she does the final chase, she won't stand a chance. But it is now walking in her direction, so this might work out quite nicely. And she has now flattened herself, but it's still quite a way off. She's flattened herself nicely, and she's definitely keen. See there, she's just made herself part of the ground, ears down. I know we speak of leopard crawling. So we're hoping that we might get a bit of action here, but as I say, that Topi is still quite a way off. If he keeps walking in the direction that he was going in, she might be in business, but the wind is blowing across, might swirl towards that Topi. It's not going directly towards him, but it's not going away from him, so there is the potential that he could pick up her smell. At the moment he's none the ware. He's obviously always diligently being cautious, but he doesn't have any idea that this lion is there. And he's turned his back now, so I wonder if she might start moving a little bit closer. For now she's still quite a way off, so we're not in the latter stages of the hunt just yet, but she is hoping that this Topi doesn't pick up her scent, and if she can get a little bit closer, she'll be in business. We were sitting with that young male, and he's just chasing flies still, but he looks like he's got quite a fat belly. And very often if the young males are around like that, they just wait for the females to hunt, and then they run in and chase them off. So you might find that this could even be the classic case of this female is hunted a couple of times already, maybe made a couple of kills, and that male has just come in and fed on them, because he looked rather fat, and I'm doubting whether he's been doing that hunting all on his own. I wouldn't be surprised if this female's been doing it for him. Now, I think we do need to wait a little bit longer with this setup here, because I think that this might take some time, but the longer we wait, the more chance we have of potentially seeing some action. But we need to wait that she gets a bit closer. She's probably around 300 meters away. Once we get into that 100-meter red zone, that's when we're really going to be thinking that we're in business, because if she's within 100 meters, she'll then try and get within 50. If she can get within 50, then she's within that sprinting zone, so that she could actually make the kill. If she had to stand up now and try and chase that Topi, she wouldn't stand a chance. She needs to get in nice and close as possible, before she makes that last burst of speed. And the lions, they do have a very strong burst of speed, and that's their real advantage. Now, Jenny, you're wondering if this single lioness can take down that Topi. Absolutely. A single lioness, I've even seen them taking down oryx, which are quite a bit more sizable than a Topi. Kudu as well, big male kudu. So this is well within her reach. She's just got to get a bit closer. Her biggest disadvantage with the Topi is their speed, but this Topi now is putting its head down and starting to relax. So we're going to keep watching this female, because there's real potential here. If she starts sneaking up on it and getting a lot closer, and that Topi doesn't realize she's there, once she's within that 50-meter range, she can have a full go at it, and we might be able to see her actually catch it. But it's still in the early stages. She needs to play her cards right, and if she's experienced, which I think she is, she'll be very patient and she'll wait for the right moment. It's all down to a little bit of patience now. It's almost like fishing. You've got to wait for the right moment to hit the fish when it's biting nicely. Fascinating to watch. I mean, this is a real battle for survival. One animal trying to evade a killer, and the predator obviously can't survive if it doesn't kill its prey. So we've got this real tussle between them. It's fascinating. We've got the elephants behind us. Now, Mia, you're wondering if this lion took that topi down, would the other topi come and help to rescue it? Antelope and topi and animals of this sort of ilk, they're not particularly that helpful with their mates, because they're obviously scared that they're also going to get eaten by the lion. So no, they generally won't come to help. What they will do, though, is all of them, if they see what happens, they'll all start alarm calling. So that will then indicate to the rest of them that, hey, there's a lion here. Everybody have a look. That's where it is, but every man for himself. So that's what they do to assist each other, but they don't come in and try and chase the lion off, because they know that they'll probably also land up being dinner. But when you get to bigger animals like buffalo, they will be very protective, especially if a lion gets one buffalo and there's a whole herd of them. They could rally and come back and try and push the lion off their mate. But it doesn't generally happen with antelope and the smaller animals. Even giraffe, they'll also run off and leave even their baby, because they know that they don't stand a chance. They'll try a little bit to defend their youngster, but they know that they're no match for lions. But buffalo know that they can actually kill lions, and if they rally together and all the bulls come forward, they can actually push the lions off of one of their own. So but this topi now, he's gone back into relaxed mode, and the lion is still staring, watching, waiting for the right moment. And we're obviously just going to have to sit here and wait and see. But I do think she needs to get a lot closer and staying very close to the ground. She does have a little bit of cover there, with there being reasonably length grass, and there's also the sort of termite mound raised areas that she can also duck behind in terms of her line of sight for that topi. The biggest problem for her would be if the wind went from her in the direction of the topi and it picked up the smell, then he'd bolt. That would be game over. So that topi looking over its shoulder now, and I tell you, we're going to sit here, we're going to wait, and hopefully we can do a quick link back to us, because the action has all started. But in the meantime, I'm going to send you back on south, all the way to South Africa, to Scott, and let's see what he's up to.
Hello everyone, we have just arrived at the Buffelshoek waterhole, and as you can see, there's two terrapins enjoying the sunny afternoon after what's been a cold day, and you wouldn't believe how good our timing is. We've got some visitors that are coming to join us, and they've literally just arrived. So we are in for a treat. It sounds like you've been having some exciting times with Ralph up in the Mara, and aren't we so lucky to be ping-ponging between two such different environments, both very special in their own rights and regards. And the fact that these herd of Ellie have literally arrived a minute after we did means luck is on our side this afternoon, and hopefully it continues. The jackpot will be as if we get to see Quarantine, a male leopard that's probably around 4 years of age now, there and thereabouts, and he's an incredibly beautiful leopard as far as looks go. He's got quite a striking appearance, and it's been quite some time. I'm actually not sure when last you guys would have seen him, so if any of you can remember and let us know, that would be wonderful, so we can share that kind of information with some of the newer viewers who may be joining us for the first time today. And if you are joining us for the first time today, please do let us know. We would love to give you some recognition and prove to you that this is 103% live. Beautiful. Now, if we're really lucky, some of these elephants might decide to have a swim, or at least throw some muddy water over their bodies to try and cool down. There's no immediate sign of Scuba Steve, a very shy hippo, but he could be here just hiding. This was the Fang gang of elephants, and for those of you who don't know who Fang is, she's like the one we're looking at now, but then one's kind of recurved, pointing backwards and downwards, so she's got a 50-50 kind of tusk deal. One perfect. Oh, there we go, shower time. Oh, I would love to be an elephant. You can swim with crocodiles and hippos without worrying too much. You've got a built-in snorkel, so you can have your head under the water and still breathe. And you can just spray yourself with water very, very effectively. So, yeah, sadly it doesn't seem, Phil, that this is Fang's gang. Of course she could surprise us and show up, but I'm guessing that she would have already. Usually when elephant herds get close to water, they're all quite excited for those prospects, and they kind of rush along together. Beautiful. Oh, we've got another interesting creature that I'd like to show you before it possibly flies off. It's sitting up in a tree at 3 o'clock there. Well done, Sands. It's a beautiful snake eagle. So, not the predator we were hoping for in the form of a leopard, but certainly... Ooh, imagine if it's seen a snake. Its body language indicates that it's either battling to stay perched on that branch in this windy afternoon, or it's possibly seen something. And while we hope that it catches a serpent, Carl, you're wondering if there are any other reptiles, namely crocodiles, that frequent this waterhole. And no, ordinarily not, but there has been one a couple of years ago that spent some time here. It kind of moves between the different waterholes. I think we need to go back to the Ellies now, because they are listening to our commands, and one of them has decided to go for a bath. Woohoo! Please bear the rest unit there. You can see it's using its built-in snorkel. Now let's watch closely. It may pull its whole head up. Yeah, it did, to take a breath. But I was watching at this very same waterhole just a few days ago when I was out trying to help Tristan find some animals when I had a morning off. And I sat here watching a young Ellie bull swim for about half an hour on quite a cold morning, interestingly. Cold, overcast morning, well, relatively cold. And he would spend quite long periods of time with his head under the water, just poking his trunk up to breathe, which was a fascinating scene. And just like that, they're off, back on the search. I've been keeping a close eye on that eagle, but it hasn't taken off to catch a snake yet, so don't worry, but I am keeping an eye on it, and if it does decide to take off, we'll have to react quickly to it. But I think it was just initially battling with the wind. This is a good example of how elephants can multitask. Well done. Leaving behind some bran muffins for the dung beetles to consume. Interestingly, I haven't seen too many dung beetles the last few weeks, and I'm wondering if it's because there's been a lack of rain, or I wonder what it is. But the first 2 weeks of December, when I first arrived back in the Sabi Sands, there was a multitude of dung beetles attacking all fresh boluses of dung. Elephant dung being kind of one of the favorites, I guess because there's so much of it in one place. And I haven't seen too many in the last few weeks. Maybe it's because I haven't been on foot and I haven't been keeping a closer eye on the smaller details. But no, that's actually not true, because let's just take a look right here, actually, now that the elephants have disappeared. Hop out quickly. This dung here is relatively fresh, yet completely untouched by dung beetles. The same here, still quite fresh and squishy. Sun-dried bran muffins. And the same goes with quite a few boluses of dung all around the waterhole here. Whereas when the dung beetles are really in kind of full force, there'll be no pile of dung unattended. And I think my guess as to why there aren't as many dung beetles around at the moment is due to the fact that we haven't had rain. We've had drizzle, but no rain. Well, no serious rain at least. Okay, well, seeing as though we've just had a wonderful sighting of those elephants here, I think what we should do now is continue our quest to try and see if quarantine has come onto Djuma, this beautiful male leopard who I've spent probably more time with him and his brother Kunyuma than any other leopards whilst at Djuma. They were the kind of stars of the show when I first arrived here at the end of 2013. But before we continue our search, I can't resist stopping to show you one last look at this brown snake eagle. They've got incredible, beautiful, beady yellow eyes. There we go. Thank you for winking and showing us your eye. Give us another wink. There we go, thank you. It's quite a quick wink. If you wink or blink yourself, you will miss it. Ooh. This snake eagle, for some reason, is looking just extra alert. Who knows, maybe it's just more hungry than snake eagles I've seen in the past, but earlier on plus now, it just seems very, very focused. Now, another characteristic of the snake eagle which is quite interesting is that you'll notice they don't have any feathers on their legs, and ordinarily to be classified as an eagle you are supposed to have feathered legs, so I'm not sure how they managed to pull some strings and get eagle status without having feathered legs, but they kind of found a loophole there. Obviously they knew somebody high up. Now, if we were to see this bird, but I would attempt to do cartwheels. The closest I've come is seeing one kind of finishing off swallowing a snake before, but I've never seen one kind of really wrangling one out of a bush or plummeting down out of the sky onto one. So maybe because this guy is looking so alert, and because we are at this waterhole where some more animals could pop in on this hot afternoon, maybe we'll stick around for a bit longer and see if in fact we don't get lucky. And while we sit here patiently, we will send you off back to Tristan to get an update on how he's getting along.
Happening this afternoon, we've done a little bit. He just did a bit of a sort of check around that area, and all was quite quiet on that side of the world, so just slowly came towards Twin Dams, and we're sitting up here and enjoying a really nice breeze that is just kind of coming over the back of us a little bit and blowing sort of over my right shoulder. Twin Dams itself is quite quiet. I don't see our little dab chicks at all. They don't seem to be here anymore. There doesn't seem to be any monitor lizards that I can spot. There was the one or two little terrapins, but they all seem to have ducked off into the water as well, so all fairly quiet on this front, which is surprising because Twin Dams generally, when it's warm and sunny like it is now, normally holds something to look at. So I'm surprised that there's no impalas or kudu or anything like that, just a big bright sun that is shining down on us. What I want to do quickly though is just go down and check the lower dam quickly, because that little lower dam where Fergus is showing you now is always a hive of activity, particularly when it's a bit flooded like this and there's a bit of vegetation. You can sometimes spot little frogs, sometimes monitor lizards. There's the weavers that are busy building there, so they'll be worth going and having a little look at. So we're going to go just take a little trip right down there and just have a look and see what's happening on that side of the world. And also often are little birds that you need to look out for, so sometimes you'll find little firefinches or little waxbills or something like that, and so I feel like looking for those kind of things this afternoon. I don't know, sort of go down and have a little look and see what else. While I go down this embankment, check what's down at this little blurb to the south of us. Let's go back across to Ralph, who's got the big
Yes, thanks, Tristan. And this female, she's only moved about a meter in the time that you've been down in South Africa. So she's really concentrating on this, and she's putting everything into it. But it can be quite a slow affair, because she really needs to concentrate and not give away her position. And that topi is still none the way. That younger male that we were watching earlier, he's still chasing flies and rolling around in the grass. Not really any help to this female. And that's the topi that this female is stalking. But she, as I say, she's about 299 meters away now. She's gained a meter on him. And it is quite unusual that they hunt topi. And somewhere over there is that young male that's been rolling around, chasing flies with his tail. But while we sit here and still watch this unfold, let's head you over to Taylor, who's with some elephants.
We've just got one elephant, and he is walking amongst the Datura stramonium, and not a very nice plant to come across, especially if you don't know what it is and you think that the seeds are going to be delicious. Don't eat it. Please don't eat it. But not surprised to see it growing up against the road. That's typically the areas that they grow in. Those. My goodness, I've got such a tickle in my throat today. Sorry. What I'm trying to say is they like to grow in the disturbed areas, and elephants like to eat wherever they like. So there's no coincidence there. I don't know what's wrong with me all of a sudden. I've gone a bit loony. But he's a lovely bull. He doesn't look like he's in must, even though he is secreting slightly from his temporal gland. We know that that's not a telltale sign, but he is just chomping, and he's quite comfortable with us being fairly close to us. We arrived, we rolled into the sighting. He didn't even twitch an ear, which is quite nice. Hopefully we'll stay on his good side too. But he has been playing around in the mud, though. You can see by his tusks and all the brown stuff on his body. Now, Sankat, you're wondering if an elephant has ever broken its trunk. I wouldn't imagine so. There's a lot of muscles in there, and I doubt any prominent bones that could be broken. I mean, the thing is amazing as to how flexible it is. I've seen little elephants, well, not little elephants, but older elephants standing on their trunks before. So no, I don't know if they could do that. But again, I don't sit with these animals 24/7. I could have missed something like that. What we do see that's quite common up here and in the Sabi sand throughout Africa is snared elephants, which is very sad. So you see ellies that are missing half of their trunk or the tips of their trunk. That's not very nice. He's not huge. He's not a big boy. We've definitely seen lots of large tuskers at the moment. He's not one of them. He's, I reckon, probably in his early 30s. He's still got a bit of growing to do, even though he is quite enormous. He's nowhere near 5 tons just yet. He'll get there quite quickly, though. It's amazing how these creatures can grow at such a rate. And I suppose when you're eating so much food, that's what happens. Now I can hear some cars, and I can see a dust cloud, but they're not really going to be able to pass us because this elephant bull has now moved right up close to the road. So unless they want to go past me and disturb him, they're welcome to, but good luck dealing with that. I'm going to sit and rather let him cross the road before